Alright guys, today I'm gonna be helping you fix your War Thunder keybind.
Why does my tank drive in circles when I try to go straight?
I hit one button and my gunner is gone. Just gone.
Okay, first of all, stop binding everything to space.
Space is my throttle.
This is my relationship with this game.
See? This is why we're doing keybinds.
I've just been aiming using vibes.
I thought R stood for respawn me faster.
No, R is reload, which you know if your controls weren't a war crime.
Wait, you can bind binoculars?
I've been leaning forward IRL, man.
Well, by the end of this video,
We might actually hit something for once.
well, while those guys do whatever they're doing, let's go ahead and get to these keybinds so that way you guys can know a thing or two about what to do for your keybinds. Here we go. Okay, so we're going to be going through a few different keybinds, ones that I think every player should be using. Now, some of you may not use these, which is why we're doing this. So you have to learn how to use them because it can be a huge advantage to you to learn how to use these things, even if some of them do take time or, you know, memory to say, hey, I got to do this. Sometimes you have to manually think and say, oh, I forgot to do this, and make sure that every game you're reminding yourself to do these things. That way it becomes second nature. So don't worry if you're struggling with some of these things or even don't know about them, because it will take some time to learn these things. So the first thing that we're going to talk about is using binoculars. If you're not using binoculars, you're literally fighting blind. You might as well just go ahead and take out one of your eyeballs and then barely be able to use the other one. For the main advantages to using binoculars is not only that you can look over cover without exposing your tank, but you can safely spot enemies and you can pre-aim before peeking. When you're going to peek someone, your gun should already be aimed before you expose yourself to the enemy. If you do not do that, you run into situations where you peek and then you get shot and you die. If you do have it to where you're already peeking the enemy and you can click as you see on the screen, it shows that circle, the little white circle that moves, that is where your gun is aiming. So if you click on the screen at the target that you're peeking, it'll aim your gun there. That way when you turn the corner, your gun is already aimed on them as best as it possibly can. You need to bind your binoculars to a mouse button or something that's easy to reach on your keyboard that you have. Mine is B. I'm not sure if that's default, but even if it's not, you can still change it or keep it. Mine's B. Yours can be literally whatever you want. So make sure that you have it bound to something that is very, very easy to get. That way you don't have to think too hard or reach across your keyboard to get it. Because once you get good at using your binoculars, congratulations, you just unlocked legal wall hacks. All right, so number 2 for the keybinds is going to be suspension control. It is, in another word, having ridgeline dominance over every other vehicle that does not have it, which is actually a decent amount. This keybind is criminally underused, and I say that because I, myself, used to not use it because I thought it was stupid and way too much to worry about. But it is very, very, very good. It can help you raise or lower your tank. It improves gun depression by 1,000,000. It hides weak spots on tanks as well, and you can peek ridges safely, more efficiently, and faster if you know how to correctly use your suspension control. This lets you fire exposing as little of your tank as possible or give you the best advantage when peeking hills or ridges faster. Sometimes even when you're rushing around buildings, driving around fully depressed can work sometimes because no one expects a fully depressed tank to be driving around. You need to make sure that you're binding not only your suspension to go up, but to also go down, because when I first did it, I forgot to do that and I was just driving around stuck with my tank driving straight up the entire match. So be very careful about doing that. This can be very useful for, again, if you're peeking ridge lines, because if you're rushing over things or peeking them, if you don't have your tank depressed all the way, when you drive over things, you can run into issues where your tank can't aim down and then you die because you weren't already aimed down. Or if you drive around really fast or peeking ridge lines and your tank is fully depressed, looking all the way down, then when you peek over hills, your gun already has the depression it needs to look over that, so you're already ready to fire as soon as you cross the hill, instead of having to cross the hill and then wait to go down. So make sure that you are applying your suspension correctly to where if you need to be more elevated or looking more down, that way again you can be in the best ready firing position no matter where you're going, whether that means looking up or looking down, you're always ready to go. Because if your tank has this and you're not using it, I promise you're throwing away free survivability and you could be winning a lot more fights if you used it. Alright, so tip number 3 that we're going to be talking about is the free look keybind, because awareness keeps you alive. Free look lets you look around your vehicle without moving not only your turret, but your vehicle itself. You can easily watch flanks while you're moving. You can check behind really any corner or even objects that are not a corner, like looking over something without exposing your vehicle at all. And you can stay aware no matter where you're at on a map, air or ground. This can really be put on anything. Mine is keybinded to C, so it really depends on what you want, especially depending on how you set up your keyboard. Mine is again set to C. I feel like that's just the easiest for me. I'm not really sure why I picked that, just kind of how it is. So it lets you literally look around corners and peek without having to expose yourself, and it lets you really stay aware of what's going on around you at all times, which is very important in this game. For example, if you're driving around a corner really fast or even just peeking slowly and you die to someone that was sitting at the end of the road, you could have easily prevented that if you had just free looked around the corner. Obviously, driving around fast is, free looking really can only help you so much there. But if you're free looking around a corner, you can see an enemy coming down the road before they see you or even anticipate you. And then you can pop out ready to shoot them and fire before they react. It works fantastically, I promise you. Now, not only does it work great in ground or even just in air, it works fantastically, even more so for bombers. Bombers need to be aware of what's going on around them at all times. For example, an Su-33 is for some reason stalking your B-29. You wouldn't know he's behind you unless you were free looking around to see what's going on. That way you can shoot him when he sneaks up behind you to try to hit you with an IR missile or an ER, or just ram you. Who knows what he was gonna do? We killed him before he could do it. Free looking can also be comboed with the zoom. If you right click, I think its default is right clicking. If you zoom, you can see targets from very, very far away. You can also do this in normal planes, but I think it works for bombers best since I feel like they gotta play defensive a lot more. You can see targets from very far away if you're free looking and you're zooming around. That way, again, you can be aware of any threat that's approaching your location no matter what. That way, they may think they're catching you off guard, and then all you have to do is snap your turrets towards them and then just start shooting. That way you can kill them. Now, another great example is when you're dogfighting somebody, you need to have your free look on, because if you don't, this will happen when you're trying to watch them behind you and you are too focused on not only controlling your plane, but also trying to control your camera by looking at them, but you lose the ability to control your plane. Now, this one does kind of combo together because you also would need to have keybinds for everything on your plane, pitch, yaw, things like that, which I think, kind of goes into the free look. I guess I should have kind of considered that its own, given you can do those without free looking and you can free look without doing those. But free looking and doing that at the same time works perfectly. That way you can look behind you and have more control over your plane. If someone's shooting IR missiles at you or radar missiles at you or anything at you, you can follow that. You can be prepared for that. Because if you're not looking behind you in a dogfight, you're already lost. You've already lost. You don't know how to move. You don't know how to counteract what they're doing. If you are watching their maneuvers while you maneuver, you can watch exactly how they're moving so you can counter exactly how they're moving. If you don't know how they're moving, guess what? The thing you're doing right now could put you right in their crosshairs. If you can watch them how they're doing, guess what? They may not be watching you. Now, you may get into a situation where you're both watching each other and you're both moving to counteract each other, but that's a good dogfight, so there's not a keybind that can fix that. As long as you can see how they're moving, you can move better. You can turn better. You can accelerate better. You can lose speed better. You can even stall if necessary. You just need to watch how they're moving in the dogfight. That way, you have a better chance of surviving. Now, another great example of using the free look would be if you're doing casts. It's awesome to fly by the battlefield, either really low or really high if possible, and use your free look to look over the side or zoom in and look down. That way you can try to scout where planes are, not only for yourself, but for your team. So, for example, if you're flying by the battlefield and you're looking at objectives and you see a plane or a helicopter or a tank, you know exactly how you need to maneuver to get to them. That way, not only you can mark them for your team, but you can have a better approach on how you're going to handle these certain vehicles, because obviously every vehicle is going to be played differently, so you need to make sure you're using them correctly and approaching them correctly. That way, if you find an Su-33 on the point, you know how to pull up to him and blow him up. Now, the next keybind that we're going to talk about is a really popular one. I'd say probably one of the most popular ones in this video because I get asked about it all the time while I'm streaming. What's that yellow mark? What's that yellow thing? What's yellow? The squad mark. This is how you can help your team, or mainly your squad, because your teammates can't see it, but helping your squad without a mic. This is one of the most underrated keybinds in War Thunder because a lot of people don't know how to use it or don't even know that it's a thing. It helps you highlight enemies for your squad. It helps your teammates aim and survive more, and it enables coordination between players players without voice chat. Now, again, the only downside to it is you have to be in a squad in order to see it. You can just squad mark something and then go to your mini map and mark it if you don't have people in your squad and you still want them to know where someone's at. You don't need to talk. You just need to say there by pinging with the yellow ping for your squad mates. You need to bind it somewhere where you can reach it quickly, because you're going to use this a lot more than you would think. Even if you play by yourself, you still get randoms in there sometimes. So you would need to be able to quickly mark it without having to stretch your fingers across the keyboard, because it can be the difference between living and dying if you have to do a lot to get to a certain keybind. For example, if your teammate's looking one way shooting and you can see that somebody's flanking him behind a rock, behind a building, behind whatever, you can squad mark as you see here, and that gives my teammates the ability to turn around and shoot the vehicle that is flanking him. Not only does it mark it on his screen that there's a yellow mark, it also marks it on the mini map, so that way he can see that as well. You can do this from in drones, which is perfect. You can also do it from in the vehicle itself. Mine is bound to my middle mouse button because I feel like that's easiest for me to reach. All I have to do is really move my finger a millimeter, hit it, and it marks vehicles, so it works perfect for me. So when you're the one that is looking for squad marks, if you pay attention to the map, when your teammate or squad mate pings something, not only does it pop up there and it's live, it also pops up on your screen with the yellow markers. It may be a different color if you have it set, I think, for your color blindness settings, but mine's yellow. So it's a perfect way to give live accurate pings for your squad mates. If I'm not mistaken, it has about an 8-second time of life. So every 8 seconds you can, or not every 8 seconds you can do it. If you squad mark something, it'll stay there for about 8 seconds before it goes away. So if you're going to do what I mentioned earlier, which is squad mark something and then mark it for your teammates, make sure to do it within that 8 seconds or else it'll go away and you may miss where the mark was at. Now, the last keybind that we're going to talk about, number 5, is going to be switching fuse control. This is how you stop wasting ammo in your howitzers. If you've ever fired an HE shell and thought, why didn't that work? This is exactly why. Because you do not have switching fuse control on. The perks of this is that you can adjust your fuse delay whenever you want. You don't have to wait until you respawn. It's perfect for adjusting your fuse delay on the fly. That way you don't have to worry about, oh crap, I brought the wrong shell. Now I have to wait till I die to shoot down planes. It also controls when the shell detonates. What I mean by that is, if you have HE, you can shoot at a plane and it's never going to detonate. But if you have the VT shell on, it will detonate when it's within a certain range of that vehicle. So that way, in that way, you're controlling when it detonates, because either you use the normal HE and you don't want it to detonate when it's near something, or if you want to try to shoot over something and use the proxy, it'll detonate when it's over a tank. So it's really up to you on when you want the shell to detonate, on what you're using it for. Switching to fuse control lets you tailor the shell to the target you are trying to shoot on the fly whenever you want. You need to also bind this as something quick but safe. You don't want it to be something too quick in the sense of the holy trinity of what keybinds you have. Like, I wouldn't put it on my mouse unless you have maybe the Razer mouse that has 5 billion keys on the side. Mine is personally numpad 1, so not on the row of keys at the top, but it's on the right side of my keyboard on that numpad. It's number 1 there. If you play howitzers a lot more, you might need to have it as something safer, but if you don't play them too much, then you don't really need to worry about it. You also need to make sure, in order to switch the fuse of your shell, you have to have proxy shells loaded. You have to have those loaded, that way you can turn off the proxy and turn it back on. Because when you turn the proxy on, it'll say radio fuse, and then when you turn it off, it'll say impact fuse. That way you know if it's gonna have the proxy shell or the normal HE shell, so that way you can see the indication of which one it is. If you bring the normal HE shell, you cannot turn that into proxy. You can only turn the proxy shell into a normal HE shell by turning it off and switching the shells, by switching the fuses. You cannot do that if you just bring the normal HE shell. So make sure that you bring only proxies, that way you can do that. Be careful about that. There are some vehicles that have different velocities. For example, the Vidar, the normal HE shell is way faster than the proxy shell, so you need to be very careful on making sure that if you are switching between the shells, make sure that you look at the shell velocities to see if you need to aim up higher using a certain shell or aim lower. So for example, you're peeking a corner and you see a vehicle. The wrong way to go about it is turn the corner with a normal HE shell, shoot them, and then say, oh crap, there's a plane above me. Let me switch to the proxy shell. That's how you die. What you need to do the correct way about going about using the right shells is when you peek the corner, that way you can shoot a tank. You shoot a tank with a normal shell, and then you switch to radio fuse, which would be the proxy shell, by clicking whatever you have binded, and then shooting down the plane. It works very simple. It might be hard at first. You may shoot a lot of HE shells at planes or a lot of proxies at ground targets, and they blow up when they're 2 feet off the ground, because yes, the VT shells will proxy the ground after a certain distance. It is very, very, very helpful to have this keybind. That way you can shoot down planes or tanks on the fly, because shooting at either of those with the wrong one will get you killed many times. So this turns explosive cells from random chaos into controlled destruction. So at the end of the day, these are just a few that I think every player needs to use. So really, to summarize, if you want to instantly improve in War Thunder, you need to be using these keybinds for sure. Make sure you're using your binoculars, make sure you're controlling your suspension, make sure that you're free looking constantly, that you're squad marking enemies, and adjust your fuse control. That way you can have more power and more strength in your gameplay. Now, these keybinds won't make you invincible, I promise you that. They will stop you from losing fights that you 100% should have won. Make sure to let me know down in the comments what keybinds you're not using and which keybinds you are using. That way I can probably put one of these in the next video if you have a keybind that you think many people should be using that they're not. I hope this helped you guys. Make sure to leave a comment or a like or subscribe or do all three. We're so close to 1,000. We are literally right there. We are 30 subs away as I made this video, so I can't wait to hit 1,000. Hope you mainly enjoyed this video, and I hope it helped you guys. Can't wait to see you guys in the next one. Have a blessed one. Peace.
Wash my ass.
Thank you. What? Thank you both for your help, Crunchy and Twin. Is there anything you guys would like to say for the masses? Okay, so we're just not saying anything. You don't have anything to say to people. Okay, I hope they're gonna know this. By the way, we're live.
No.
We're recording.
Goo goo gaga. Goo goo gaga. Goo goo gaga.
Twin. All right. Well, twin.
Goo goo gaga.